There's a reason for that, folks. And it's not just what's in the water. On page 7 of this document, and it talks about how 42 years ago that the Defense Intelligence Agency was experimenting with microwaves on cells. Now, you all know what cells are, and they teach you in biology that there's this thing with a nucleus and a wall around it and a protoplasm and all that nonsense, right? And they oversimplify this thing. Did you know that a single cell has the inner workings of something similar to New York City with its infrastructure? It's unbelievable how incredible it is. These people that teach us that there is no God are not only sick in the head, they're as stupid as a rock. Because the information is so clear, the science is so there, that God made this. No human being can figure out how to recreate what He's made. We have not been able to make a blade of grass on a laboratory bench for thousands of years. But they were figuring out ways to mess with the subcellular components of cells 40 years ago with microwaves. And guess what, folks? They perfected it, and they've deployed it. This is the Fullerton School District Superintendent handing out iPads after years of me saying don't do it. I want to talk to you about an experiment that was run on rats, folks. These are Wistar rats, and that's a wand that's basically a microwave transmitter on that rat's abdomen that was applied for 15 minutes a day for 15 days. That right there is an unfortunate victim in the Fullerton School District, and this psychotic superintendent has the audacity, in spite of my years of warning him against this program, he's putting these pictures on his Facebook page because he's drunk on technology. And because he's drunk on technology, he got to go hang out at the White House with Mr. Obama. Was it really worth selling your soul and selling out the kids? I want to show you where they put the antenna on the Wi-Fi. It's right there at the bottom. And as you can see, it's conveniently located right on his zipper because that's how these things are used. As you can see, that's where the deployment of the microwave signal is on the rat's abdomen. Now, that rat got it for 15 minutes a day for 2 weeks. This kid's going to get it for, I don't know, 5 hours a day for 25 years. That's the transmitting device. As you can see, you know, these cell phones and these iPads put out the same power. But basically what ended up happening, they checked out the rats, and you've got a decrease here anywhere from 25 to 50% decline in the ovarian reserves of those rats. Okay, so the girl that you carry to term in your womb and you stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning with the earaches or the nightmares caring for 18 years is going to sit through these classrooms, and nobody wants to talk about this because everybody says you're crazy when you bring this up. Nobody has the guts to tell the truth. These kids are being sterilized, and their brains are being destroyed by the nonsense they're being taught. These things are weapons, and everybody in this room, if you've got kids that you're using these things as babysitting devices, in Jesus' name, try to find a way to stop doing that. And it's never too late because girls are born with a lot of eggs. There's a finite number, though, and they only drop a certain amount throughout their life. And you better hope that microwave beam that came out of that antenna didn't burn the one up that just happened to be the one that's trying to be in the same room as that sperm when she finally meets her husband after going to college for 15 years and buying a house. And then she ends up going to the in vitro fertilization clinic and they can't have a child. And you know what happens when people can't get pregnant? There's another side to this besides the fact that God is really upset about the fact that people are not being created to inhabit eternity. Kidnappings start increasing. Social service systems expand their reach and steal children, even more than they're already stealing now. Because guess what happens when children become commoditized? The price goes up. And what happens when the price goes up? People will do crazy things to get their hands on it. So there's nowhere to go but down, folks. And silence on this only ensures that one day it might be your kid that may end up getting plucked out of the supermarket when you're not looking. I don't know how far off this is, but it's coming. Apple is a cult. It's the cult of Mac. Apple's spending $5 billion on its corporate headquarters. People love Apple stock. It performs well. Tobacco stock performed really well, too, for a long time. That's their corporate headquarters, ladies and gentlemen. I want to show you something. I go to city council meetings. I read plans, planning commissions, all kinds of stuff. That right there is a slide off of their landscape architecture plans. This is actually taken from a video that they were pitching to Cupertino City Council. I want you to look at this. That's off of their landscape architecture plans. This is the layout of how they're going to lay the place out in terms of where they're going to put the picnic benches and the trees. You notice any similarity to the sperm here and this guy over here? Let me take it a step further, because this was you in the two-cell stage. And this is Apple's corporate headquarters. Can you see what's happening to the nucleus, ladies and gentlemen? It's getting electrocuted. That's just one slide. Now, I'm not a gambler, but the odds of that are like putting your life savings on boxcars at the craps table. Those are some long odds. What's going on here? All right, so here's a little black and white version just to make it a little clearer for you. What are the odds of the landscape architecture plan from a satanic company that has put an iPad in the laps of every school-aged child in the United States doing this kind of stuff in light of this kind of stuff from 40 years ago? What are the odds? Like I said, there are no accidents when it comes to what the government's doing. Because ultimately, at the very top of the government are Satan-worshipping pedophiles. And that's a fact. And I don't care how you want to defend this, you can't. Because you can't climb that ladder unless they can get you in a compromised position on camera on your way up. That's how people move up the chain. They do bad stuff, they let it get photographed, and it goes into the file. Any of you that may have been around when J. Edgar Hoover was running the FBI, you know what I'm talking about. That's how that man operated. Nothing has changed. The corruption is so endemic. And what you see on TV is the overflow, the oozing out of all the wickedness. I haven't watched television for over 20 years, and there's a reason. Because I'm not going to let them ram this crap down my throat. Because when you go to a restaurant blindfolded with a stranger and they say, eat this, you're not going to do it. Well, that's what the TV does. It feeds you stuff before you have a chance to understand what's coming into the eyes, the windows to your soul. That's a problem. The TV is full of killing and raping and murdering and these bizarre artificial intelligence, humanoid, demonic creatures from the pit of hell. And so are the video games. It's spilling over from the top. Hollywood, the bottoms, they pulled all the stops out, folks. Morality's gone. Because wickedness is abounding in high places. There are more alcoholics and drug addicts and pedophiles in Washington, D.C. than anywhere else per capita in the world. Maybe Hollywood comes in second place. So that's a really strange coincidence. Father, in Jesus' name, may you open the eyes of these people that are here and just have them understand that this is all real and this is not a joke. Please, Father, and grant us protection as we spread this information. To whom much is given, much is required. In Jesus' name, amen. This is a sketch from Apple's corporate headquarters, written up by an architect, once again off the Cupertino City Council website. This is the center of the complex. It's like a spaceship looking thing. But I want to take your attention to this diagram right here. Can everybody see that? So that is this. Missing that. I spent 5 years at UCI looking at this stuff, looking at stuff under electron microscopes, doing all kinds of bizarre things that at the time when I was in my 20s, I wasn't even aware of what I was doing. I was just doing it and figuring out how to do it right so I could get the grades I needed to graduate. But ladies and gentlemen, what you see here is Apple's corporate headquarters. And it's a mirror image of a cross-section of the nucleus of a human egg. Except there's one thing missing. It's this part right here. That's the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. That's the subcellular component of the human egg that runs the Zoner reaction. In other words, when you have a sperm hit that egg in a billionth of a second, there's a flash of light in that egg hardens, only one sperm gets in that egg. And it's run by that piece of equipment right there. And it just so happens on this document, it's amazing you brought this today, that's Providence. On page 7 of this document, it talks about how non-thermal power levels of microwave radiation logical changes to the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Page 7, second paragraph. So, ladies and gentlemen, what you're seeing right here is something that the devil himself has designed. That is a satanic company with technology deployed in the laps of every school-age child in the United States, and they're basically putting it out there in their landscape architecture plans what they're doing. That's evil. This breaks my heart. I can't sleep at night. I saw probably one of the saddest moments of my life, and I've seen a lot of things. I've buried my father. I've seen people die. I've seen people die of cancer. But I was driving to school, and I was driving by a school, and I saw these Hispanic women that look like the ones that come from the mountains of Mexico. You could tell they're poor, but they're walking these little girls to school, and it looked like they had First Communion dresses on because they thought they were helping these children by getting them an education. And these wicked people that won't listen, it's right here, it's right there. And these girls are getting brought into these classrooms. Zonia knows, I probably put 10,000 flyers on cars in my community. And the parents won't budge because they want to get their nails done. They want their kids at school so they can go out and hang out with their girlfriends and go to the gym. I don't get it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is really serious. I mean, you've got people in my community, all the school boards on the high school, in Anaheim, in Los Alamitos, in Fullerton, in Cerritos, in San Dimas. I don't know how many school board meetings I've presented all this information. They don't care. You want to know why? Because they can't see. They're blind. They have not been born again by the Spirit of God. And when you are not born again by the Spirit of God, you can't see. Amazing Grace was written by a slave trader. That guy got enough money together in his greedy little endeavors to get himself a couple of galleons, and what he'd do is he'd chain up these Africans, and he put them downstairs and make them row the darn thing until their arms fell off, and he fed them to the sharks. That's the kind of guy who wrote Amazing Grace. That's where that song came from. He had no idea what he was doing. Ladies and gentlemen, do these people know what they're doing? I don't know. If they do, that's really scary. But what matters is that they're doing it. There's that subcellular component again I wanted to show you. There's a couple more things that really bother me here. This is another slide of a human egg out of a biology textbook. And that's Apple's corporate headquarters landscape architecture plan. All right, so if I was in Vegas right now and I had put my life savings on boxcars, I'd probably be walking out with $1 billion because I just hit it 3 times. Those odds are crazy. What in the world are these people thinking? What is that? Why do they have pictures of cross-sections of the human egg in their landscape architecture plans when I've got this report from the military from 40 years ago that says that these microwaves mess up that part of the cell? Is it an accident? No.